Hey buds, I'm the real Gary V, and how are you doing today? When deciding on an army for Age of Sigmar, there are a lot of things you need to take into consideration before dropping a quarter of your monthly income into it. Coolness factor, how the army plays, how much of a pain will it be to paint, how much of a pain will be to put together, and how close does the army come to full nudity. Meet the Fyreslayers, one of the two fully independent dwarf armies in the game. They are very similar to your average dwarf, but they have all made some unique lifestyle choices since being left alone under their mountain holds, with no one telling them, why are you doing that? The first and most obvious thing is a lack of clothes and armor. The vast majority of the army only wears a loincloth and a helmet. The next thing is a lack of a sense of individuality. Like you can see, most of the character models can kind of be told apart, but all the infantry in the army basically looks the exact bloody same. Also, if you want to climb the ranks of the Fyreslayer military, you need to switch your name to Carl. It's mandatory for any promotion in their military. And the last thing is, when their god Grimnir managed to blow himself up 5 minutes after being freed by Sigmar in a duel with the god of the Fire Drakes, his followers decided to honor him by adopting his live fast, die young approach to life, and hammering pieces of both those gods into their skin. You know, completely normal stuff. The substance that they hammer into themselves is called Urgold. It gives them a power boost, and it's kind of like crack to them. They can smell the difference between it and the normal stuff, and they pretty much make it their entire personality as a faction outside of a decent exposure. Much like traditional dwarfs, the Fyreslayers spend a good chunk of their time hanging out underground in their magma holds, hoarding massive amounts of Urgold that they have acquired. They are very traditional, like the dwarfs of the old world. Their society is based on a patriarchal system. They use runes instead of magic. They love to mine, and this could be for Urgold or various other riches that they could use to get Urgold. Unlike traditional dwarfs, the Fyreslayers breed like rabbits. They most likely realize not wearing armor is really bad for casualties. So instead of making armor and wearing it, they each have 12 kids to offset the losses. This has led to the complete bankruptcy of the condom and birth control industries in the magma holds. They also let their women fight in very limited numbers. And the rune daddy of the Harmdar Lodge has named his daughter Bruja Brightaxe as his heir. So hopefully in the near future we can get our very first canonical rune mummy. Come on, GW, you fucking cowards, do it. Come on, Codex coming out soon. Do it, do it, do it. The Fyreslayers also love venturing out of their mountain holds to find more gold. This could be in the form of locating it themselves, stealing it from people who might have it, or selling themselves as mercenaries. This all depends on which subfaction is taking the job. The Harmdar Lodge is super honorable, and they'll often help those who don't have any payment or very little payment just to do a good deed, and they exclusively work for Order factions. The Greyfeared, however, are the complete opposite of this. They will work for pretty much anyone, including Chaos factions, as long as it pays in Urgold. Although a lot of the time they will betray said people right after and steal extra gold if they have it. This is very scummy, and most of the other Fyreslayer subfactions look down upon the Greyfeards due to who they'll work with. Also, this is just headcanon, but at one point or another they have most likely worked for a Slaashi army, so you cannot convince me otherwise that a Fyreslayer at one point has not whored himself out for some Urgold. The Fyreslayers also employ the use of giant fire drakes called Magmadroths instead of using war machines. These drakes are raised from birth and stay loyal to their rider. The Lofnir Lodge has a very large amount of these Magmadroths, and in battle they employ large numbers of them so they do not suffer from the curse of the 4-inch move that the rest of the army suffers from. The army largely consists of lightly armored 2-wound infantry, large amounts of foot heroes that provide a melee role, a support role, and a quote-unquote magic role with their prayers. More mobile and tanky Magmadroth units that can get to where you need and pack a punch when they get there. Invocations summoned from your priests that are basically endless spells just without the actual name of endless spell. And every turn you pop a new rune which gives you a different effect each turn. These runes can give you extra rend or up your ward save to make you a little bit more survivable. And as of right now in 4th edition, the Fyreslayers function more like a horde army than a super elite army like they used to. The Rune Daddies are the heads of the faction. They're really good at melee with their big ol' axe. They have some pretty good buffing abilities. The one major weakness of them, though, is they have no pullout game whatsoever, so keep that in mind when putting them in your lists. The Rune Sons are downgraded Rune Daddies. They're pretty good at hunting monsters, they're half decent at melee, they're also really cheap. And if any of them die, it's okay, there's like 50 more kids at home. The Rune Master is your big bad Amish priest. He gets 2 prayers per turn, and he can also buff your runes that you pop every turn as long as he's built up enough prayer points. The Rune Smiter is your less awesome priest. He has 1 prayer per turn, and he can also deep strike him and one other unit 9 inches away from an enemy unit. The Battlesmith is your big bad flag boy. He gives buffs to rally, and he can also prevent objective control debuffs. The Flamekeeper gives some really decent buffs to your army, but he also requires units to die first for those buffs to go off, so it's kind of a bit of a trade-off there. The Grimhild Exile is a really good melee character that buffs move and charge rolls for your other units. He also has a really good once per game fuck you mortal wound attack that works best against high wound models. The Grimhild Berserker is another good melee character. He can fight twice, and he gets 1 of 2 buffs. And if you take 2 of this character, they could each take a separate buff. The Doomseeker is yet another good melee character, who would have thought, who gets buffs against 1 unit that you pick at the start of the battle. And he also has a bit of a pain kink, so the more he gets hurt, the better he is at damaging stuff. The Rune Father, Rune Son, and Rune Smiter all have Magdaroth variants. This gives them a big buff to their move, save, and attacks. It also gives you some models that don't look the complete same as the rest of the army. Big win there. Auric Hearthguard are your 1 shooting unit in the army. They have a decent amount of attacks with a movement debuff, although I find this effect rarely ever comes into play. Either you kill what you're shooting at, or you flub your rolls and they kill you. Hearthguard Berserkers. They come in 2 variants, one that gives you a big buff to the amount of attacks that you have, and the other gives you crit mortals on 6s to hit. These units are also your Foot Heroes bodyguards, and they get a 5-up ward save whenever they're close to them. Volkite Berserkers are your base infantry, and they also come in 2 variants. Either on the charge, you get a bunch of extra attacks, or you get a better save, and when you die, you potentially dish out a couple mortal wounds. The Vulcan Flameseekers are the newest models in your army. They look the best out of everything in the army, in my opinion, and they're an anti-monster infantry. They have a slightly better save, due to the fact that they wear armor. They have a half-decent amount of anti-monster attacks, and they have a effect that debuffs the enemy monster, so the companion weapons of that monster is lessened. The Pizza Oven buffs the prayer abilities of your priest within combat range. It also gives you 1 unbind as if you are a wizard, and once per game you can take the pizzas out of the oven and heal your entire army, but if you do so you lose all the other abilities. The Molten Infernoth is your melee shooting summon. It also debuffs units that it's damaged for -1 to wound. The Runic Firewall is your blocking summon. It also can dish out mortal wounds and debuffs the control score of enemy units near it. The Zargaron Flamespitter is your shooting summon. You get extra hits when you roll 6s to hit, and you get hit and wound buffs against large groups of enemies. Some of the positives of the army. You're able to field tons of low-cost infantry and characters that are all pretty good in melee. The Magdaroths are also pretty good for the cost, and they add some mobility to your army. Your army solely relies on priests to get the job done for magic, so you don't ever have to worry about dispelling. You can have some really good turns if you pop the right rune at the right time. And your entire army has a 6-up ward save. And now on to the negatives. The Fyreslayers are really quite fragile. They can dish it, but they can't take it out. 3/4 of your troops have a 6-up save. The other quarter have a 5-up save. You do have a 6-up ward save, but that's not going to get you very far. You are painfully slow as an army, and you're going to get outmaneuvered all the time. Your best runes only last 1 turn, so if you do not get the job done in that turn, you're dead in the water. Ward control quickly becomes impossible by turn 3, seeing how 75% of your army will be dead by then. Your army relies heavily on positioning as well. A lot of your effects are wholly within 12 inches, so if you want to move a unit away, they are going to face debuffs, and that's usually when they can get picked off easier than before. While your Magdaroth units are half decent, they are often targeted by shooting attacks early in the game, and a lot of times don't even get into combat due to the fact that they are a big open target. Your army also struggles to play the objective, capturing the enemy objectives is really hard, and a lot of the battle tactics are also really hard, especially mid to late game. Well, that's just about it for my very first episode of Poorly Explained. Thank you very much for watching, and it would mean the world to me if you could like and subscribe. I'm the real Gary V, and have a great day.